Hey Flosstube, I'm Michelle from Michelle's Romantic Tangle, and it is Thursday, April 16th, 2020, something like that. We are all still self-isolating and quarantining and whatever, stay home and stitching and whatever we want to call this. I've been working on my lamp some more. This is because I'm sure that you can't tell the tail of a cat and the cat's hindquarters. There are going to be some books under this and some more cats to this way and a clock on the far end, and this thing's huge. I love this. It's a Reolist kit called Furry Friends. It's all shades of brown, and it is all, what makes it work is the shading. If I have a favorite thing about cross-stitching right now, it is big full coverage pictures that take advantage of all the wonderful things you can do with shading and floss. Loving Furry Friends. Other thing I am absolutely loving is Self-Isolating Bat by Night Spirit Studio. It is one of the Be Well and Stitch patterns, and it is just gorgeous. I actually wanted to start this, and I knew I had some black Ada, didn't know where it was. So I stole the black Ada from the Dimensions Kit, Frederick the Literate. And the reason that was okay is because I tried to start Frederick last year for Stitch Mania, but there was a big slub in the middle of the fabric. So I knew that I wanted to swap it out. I just hadn't got around to doing it yet. And I used a small corner of it for the bat. I'm going to use another corner of it for her new pattern, which is the Plague Nurse. That is just all the amazing, and I love it. And as soon as I get the time and the energy to start a new project, that is what I am going to start. And I did after I started feeling bad that now I can't start Frederick. I did find another piece of black Ada in my stash, so I may be able to have all the things. This one was a challenge for me. I didn't grid the fabric because there weren't grid lines on the pattern, and I need to learn to just draw the grid lines on the fabric or the pattern if it is something like this. About here, I started having a problem, and no matter what I did, I could not get these two flowers. I couldn't get the white to form the spaces where the two flowers would go. And I frogged and I restitched and I frogged and I restitched, and it was not, I couldn't find the mistake. Not being able to find the mistake is the whole reason why I am so enthusiastic about gridding. So I wound up I'd been stitching it from the bottom up, and I wound up going from over here across the top, figuring I'll get it as close as I can around the top, and wherever I have a problem, I might have solid white and not a flower, because I couldn't fix it. I got around the top and stuff lined up just fine, so I don't know if there's a mistake in here that I am not seeing, or if I had convinced myself there was a mistake when there wasn't one. But it's done, and I love it, and I don't know quite how I'm going to finish it yet, but I have ideas. Another thing I discovered while stitching this, I don't know how bats work. I was stitching from the bottom up, so every time I picked up my fabric, I had my fabric oriented the right way. Every single time I picked up the pattern itself, I had it upside down. Every time. Love this one. Love the way that it is white threads on black fabric and the look that it does. I did see one on Instagram where someone did light fabric with a variegated black for the bat, and that was also amazing. You should stitch this one. You really should. I've done a little more plotting away on Caledonian Sky. If you watch my last video, you'll know that I had it rolled up and had threads from the front sewn into the back. All I had actually done was caught the ends of my parked threads in the stitches on the back, so it was a super easy fix. And plodding along, filling in the squares, it'll be done at some point, or it won't. For my last 3 videos, I have forgotten to show you my progress on Dutchess Still Life. This one's a Reolist kit I'm doing for our Reolist Sal. And here it is right side up. There's the cheese. That's going to be a huge wheel of cheese, and there's another little wheel of cheese, and more grapes, and just a bunch of stuff. I love the way the colors pop on this Black Ada. I was so afraid of the Black Ada because I didn't think my vision could handle it, and my vision's not great. I am feeling the stitches with the tip of my needle, but that's okay because it is working. And just look at that orange. All my projects right now are favorite things. Oh, and one more, back to the bat. I use 3 strands of white DMC. The pattern calls for, I think, DMC2, which I don't know what that is, let alone have it in my stash. So I just used white, did it in 3 strands because I really wanted the white to have lots of full coverage. This time last year, I was complaining about how much I hate stitching with white. Turns out the problem isn't the white floss. If I have white floss on something that is not white or cream Ada, I'm good with it. And then last night, I pulled out this one and did a little work on it because the idea kind of wandered through my mind that I could stitch on this. It is an old Dimensions kit. It is Peaceful Countryside by Charles Wysocki. I don't know where I got this. Someone else had already started it, and they had started in the middle, and I didn't want to trust that their counting was right, so I just started over with a fresh piece of fabric. And now I'm hoping that their color sorting was right. I'm putting a great deal of faith in a stitcher who I know nothing about who they were or whether they were good at sorting floss or anything. It's also the kind of image that if I get some of the colors not quite exactly right, it's not going to end the world. So I'm okay with that. I have been playing around on Kindle Unlimited a lot and looking at craft books because I can. There's no library, there's no thrift stores to go buy books at. So I've been playing on Kindle Unlimited. It turns out there are a lot of craft books. There is knitting and quilting and cross-stitching and just all kinds of things. Some of them are really amazing and some of them aren't that great. I read a Teach Yourself to be a Master Quilter in a Day type book this morning, and I don't think the person who wrote that book has ever made a quilt. I don't think they've ever spent time with someone who's made a quilt. Some of the things they said were just so wrong. But I'm taking some of the really amazing books I found, and I put together a video earlier this week of recommendations, and I'm working on a second video full of recommendations because there is some great stuff out there. And maybe I can weed through and help you find some of it. If you are looking for a cozy mystery to read on your Kindle or Kindle app, I can't say enough good things about One Night in Drake Mansion by Channing Whitaker. It is the first book in the Skeptic Detective Mystery series and takes place where they are filming, a reality show is filming a live overnight broadcast from a house where something tragic happened. And the book swings between the modern day protagonist and a magician, I think 100 years earlier, something like that, who was possibly responsible for the murders of the family who lived in the house. It is atmospheric, it draws you in, it is fun. Also, that one is free on Kindle Unlimited. It is also a free Kindle book right now for anyone who has the Kindle app, so don't need Kindle Unlimited for that one. If it wasn't free, it's one that's worth paying for. Dark Ride is by Ian Robb Wright, and it is a horror novel. A guy and his friends go to spend the night urban exploring in an old theme park that's been abandoned, and they're going to spend the night in the remains of a ride that had a tragic fire years earlier, and of course there's something in the ride because otherwise it wouldn't be a horror novel. I read that one straight through between last night and early this morning, and it was really good if you like horror novels that you don't take too seriously. So recommend that one. It is free on Kindle Unlimited. Wouldn't have felt bad if I'd paid for it. Other big thing going on, despite the fact that we're in a pandemic, my daughter and her husband just bought their first house. And the reason I'm telling you about it is to explain the paint I've got all over myself. And also to tell you about her time capsule house. It was built in 1973. It is the most 1970s little tract house that ever was. I don't know. I'm curious. It was sold by an estate, and I don't know if the person who lived in it from day one lived in there until the end, because everything in that house is original. The only thing it is missing are the Harvest Gold appliances, and the appliances in there look, I don't think they can possibly be that old, but they're not new. In the middle of the kitchen, there is hanging a rotary phone. When we went with her for the home inspection, my husband picked it up to see if it still worked, and there was a dial tone, and he tried to dial our number to see if the phone worked. But apparently the old rotary phones can't handle a 10-digit phone number, so I'm kind of curious why they couldn't make calls from it. I guess they could answer it if it rang, and presumably they had other phones and other outlets. She's not going to have a landline, but I told her if she rips it off the wall, I have dibs, because it's neat. It's not Harvest Gold, but it's that shade of brown that went with the Harvest Gold. And going through the house, it has the popcorn ceilings. It has the light fixtures that were in the house that I grew up in. I think the house I grew up in was built in like 76, 77. And hers was built in 73, but it has so many things that, yep, we had that and that and that and that. And I'm making myself batty trying to remember what room had that linoleum and what bathroom had that light fixture. So I went over there earlier today and self-isolated in one of her bedrooms and rolled paint onto the walls. Not a professional painter, never will aspire to be a professional painter. If my eyes have a hard time with cross stitch, oh boy, they have a hard time painting super pale green on white walls. I made myself dizzy, I think. Not paint fumes, just trying to focus on whether I'd missed any spots. Couple of shout outs before we're done. I've been watching Brandy with Every Home Needs a Gnome, and she pointed out that a lot of the Be Well and Stitch patterns are linked to from Keepsakes' Facebook page, which I did not follow before watching that video, so I went and I found a bunch that I had not previously printed out. I don't know how many of these I'll stitch before the pandemic is over. I don't know if I will want to stitch any of them after it is over, but it's fun to plan, and there is no harm in printing out patterns that you may or may not stitch. I've been watching Ardith Designs and getting caught up on her videos. Her enthusiasm and positive spirit, it's just totally what I needed the other day. And she was talking about dough bowls and how she has a baby bathtub. And I got thinking that up in my sewing room, I have an antique wooden cradle. It's no frills, nothing fancy, but came from Grandma's Antique Store. My oldest son sort of almost briefly slept in it once or twice, as much as he slept in anything that wasn't my arms. And so I won't part with it because it's there, it's mine. And the thought was it's always going to have, right now it's full of fabric scraps, but it was going to have baby quilts in it. Maybe I need to incorporate some stitching in there. I'll have to think about it. And also Country Stitchers did a tour of Dimensions where they make the cross stitch kits, which I hadn't seen yet, and that was a lot of fun to watch. So I am still knitting away on the garter stitch shawl. I didn't bring it over here to show you, but that's okay because it pretty much looks the way it looked last time I showed you. The stripe pattern has changed a tiny bit. I am still self-isolating while leaving the house to drive my son to work and pick him up from work, so lots of driving, no getting out of the car. Apparently now I'll be isolating in bedrooms at my daughter's house painting, but I think that fits the rules. house repairs for, what is it, safety are permitted, and whoever lived in that house smoked. It has 47 years of nicotine. Those walls need painted before they move in. I'm not gonna pretend that that's not a possibility. The first day we walked up to see it, you could smell the smoke through the windows from outside. It was potent. So I'll be driving my son to work and back and painting while keeping far away from people and waiting for things to change. I don't know why I've got so much glare on my glasses today. Sorry about that if it's distracting. Thank you for watching. What are you working on? What's your quarantine look like? Are you having lots of time to stitch, or still business as usual working, or something else? I'm Michelle with Michelle's Romantic Tangle, and I will be back with you again soon with more videos. I'm working on Volume 2 of the Kindle Unlimited craft book recommendations. Hopefully I'll have that together for you within a few days. I'm loving this light fixture that's in my daughter's kitchen. The more I look at it, the more I think about hobnail milk glass and how just pretty and vintage it is. I don't know how much light it puts out or how practical it is, but I like it.